Hello all, welcome back to Words and Pictures for another Watercolour Wednesday. I mentioned last week when we were swatching my new Daniel Smith paints, my old new Daniel Smith paints, take a look at the link down below if you want to see that in action, that I had a plan to use these as part of a limited palette on this tray for a while, and I'll keep them on the tray and see where it takes me. The colours that I wanted to add, and this is partly because I just need to refill them into my pans. So grey titanium, one of my all-time favourites, is running out in the pan. As I said last week, if that's something that interests you to see me refilling pans, please let me know, because we can do that on camera if that's useful to you. And then I mentioned roses and berries last week, obviously looking at these colours, so I wanted some greens in the mix, and this is green gold, which is the really quite vibrant lemony citrusy green, which I could also do with a bit of a top up in the pans, I think. And this is serpentine green, which is an amazing multi-pigmented colour, bit more heft to it than the green gold, which is quite light. So my first port of call with this, so I am thinking berries, I'm thinking roses in the summer, but I just want to take a look at all of these colours together, just so that I can see if there's something that feels like it's missing. That's the first port of call, is to have a look at this palette and see if it does make me as interested and curious and excited to play as I think it's going to. It will also give me a chance to see if there's something missing that I want to add in. So I'm going to create just a little graduating palette moving down here so that I can look at these colours together. This is just a much quicker swatching of what's on the tray than last week. You've seen these four in action, and I just want to see how they look if I add in these greens that I want to play with. As I've said before, Quin Coral is probably not ever going to be a colour that I use by itself. Well, any colour's probably more interesting if you mix it up, because you're going to get more detail, more excitement, more variation. So using pure one colour, unless it's something like Moonglow, of course, which has got other colours built into the mix, and that's a joy. So I just want to have a little look at this on the paper. So now we get into the three that I've just added to the palette. So this is the grey titanium. So eagle-eyed people amongst you will notice that these paints haven't dried. So yes, I am in fact filming pretty much straight after I've done the previous video. These will dry on the palette, and then you can just reconstitute them with a little spritz of water, as you do with any watercolour that's in its pack. I mean, seriously, look at that green gold glow. It's an extraordinary colour. And then the serpentine green just on the end here gives me a bit more depth. I'm wondering if I'm going to want to add a blue, but I think I just want to sort of let these colours play together a little bit. So my thought is that these create really rather lovely leafinesses. That's just little doodle. What am I thinking? Let's go first of all with maybe a bit of a random flower shape. So I'm going with quite a watery bit of Perylene violet, just going to add some sort of almost rosy shapes here. I'm not going to get too precious about them. A little bit of a swirl can be quite a useful way to indicate a rose. These really are just doodles. And then let's take the serpentine green and just add in a little bit of that. And I'm going to use a slightly finer brush to just draw down a stem or two. So what I'm quite interested in is a little bit of Caliente grey in there to create shadow. So that green is bleeding up into the pink. That's all good. I'm completely fine with all of that happening without me. So one of the joys of watercolour is letting it just do what it's capable of, letting that pigment just travel. I'll shape these a little more later. I'm also quite interested in sort of berry type affairs. So maybe a little mix of this. Ooh, look at the colour of that. Let's just pop down some starter berries in a very loose kind of a way. They're almost not round at all at the moment. Let's be a little rounder about it, shall we? Clear that off a little bit and maybe come in with a slightly stronger bit of, yeah, there we go. Little berry clusters. Might put a bit of colour around the side of some of those. Then the Caliente grey, just as a shadow. And let's create a bit of a berry head. Ooh, quite enjoying that. It's turning into a flower, which I'm fine with. Let's put a little bit more detail down a couple of these petals. So you can see that's partly dried there and partly not. Going to take some green gold and just create some sort of almost subliminal leaves off those roses. Seem to have got a bit of stray brush going on there, brush tip. Let those just happen. Let's travel down there. Thinking maybe a bit of potter's pink for a rose as well. Let's just see what that does. I want the Perylene violet in too. It's such an extraordinary colour. Into that, just going to put a bit of this wet serpentine green. Just doing that. Might come in with a bit of this grey just to add, I don't know, leafiness here. A little bit of colour in between. And letting that, so that red is still bleeding and that's all good. Let's drop a little bit of green into these leaves. Just a thought of green. Draw this down and away. So doodle, play. You can see I'm just creating loose brush strokes, just a sort of idea of shaping. That's gone over the top, not to worry. Either I can dab it back like so and come in with something that makes me a bit happier, but there is something about how that Quinacridone adds dynamism to these other pinks. There's a leaf, there's a little echo of something happening there. That's all got too precise now, so I'm getting rid of it. Don't like it. Going to take a little spot of the Caliente into these leaf shadows just to give it a bit of depth. And maybe some more. So one of the things that I'm feeling a lack of at the moment is a sort of burnished orange, and I don't know whether that's just because it's the time of year that it is. I'm sort of wishing I had a yellow that I could mix in and let do some work, but I'm wondering whether mixing green gold, because it is quite a yellowy green, with, oh, I don't know, a bit of, look at that sort of lemony orange colour. Is that on camera? Dash it all. That was green gold with, yeah, look, see, we need to do some proper colour mixing with these, don't we? Because it's going to be quite exciting. Okay, let's grab another piece of paper and do ourselves a little grid. Just a loose grid, probably, not as formal as last week's, but that has just made my brain go wild at that golden colour that I've got there. So let's take serpentine green with some potter's pink, and let that just mix on the paper. Nice. Serpentine green with some Quinacridone mixing on the paper. Nice. You can see how many roses I'm going to get out of this. Serpentine green and a little bit of Perylene violet. Serpentine green and a little bit of Caliente grey. Oh, that's pretty. Serpentine green and a little bit of grey titanium. Grey titanium is just a colour which, I don't know, it makes my brain go, yay. Serpentine green and a bit of green gold. Good. So let's now go green gold at the top. Green gold, really vibrant. So the serpentine green, as it dries, you can see even just in there, the serpentine green's got other pigments going on. Grand. So green gold. Should have put a bit more pigment in that bit of green gold so I can see it. Good. Green gold, quick. Layer in some potter's pink. Nice. They're gonna not quite blend because the green gold was already a bit drier, but I'm all right with that, because what I'm also interested in is how these colours interact at different points. So what are we on? Quinacridone. That's like a little sort of magic trick. Let's put a bit more of the green gold to get that yellowy. Yeah, there it is. Yellowy orange. Grand. What are we on? Green gold and Perylene violet. That's a lot of Perylene violet I just put in. Let's get back some green gold to... I'm enjoying these kinds of... See, Perylene colours have a... I don't know what it is. They have a sort of moodiness to them, an atmosphere that is really quite special. So this is green gold with some Caliente grey. Nice. Green gold with some grey titanium. It's undoubtedly going to make me happy again. Green gold with some serpentine green, and that should end up being the same as we've got there, but I'll make sure it's a slightly different mix. Grand. Next along, that is my grey titanium. Oh, how I love you, grey titanium. Grey titanium with potter's pink. Oh, who knew that it was going to be that? That's a dusky rose to die for. grey titanium with some quin coral. It's going to be interesting. Ooh, a strange version of pink. Can't quite get my head around that one. Grey titanium. Ooh, that's got some green in, hasn't it? Never mind. This is a loose process. Perylene violet. See, it makes it what is it? There's a melancholy something in the Perylenes. Can't quite work it out. Where have we got to? Don't lose track. So grey titanium with this time some Caliente grey. That's nice. And another version of grey. Grey titanium. I've definitely got some green on the board there. Oh well, we're nearly at the bottom of this one, and I'm putting green into this anyway with the green gold. And grey titanium. Let's see if we can just mix that up. So I've just got grey titanium. That's a lot of grey titanium pigment. Grey titanium with serpentine green. There we are. That's a really beautiful colour. That's nice. Okay, what did we start with? So I'm going this way along and then back again. If your brain is hurting, I apologise. My brain is having fun. So this is a Caliente grey. So a bit of Caliente grey. Now we're going to recognise quite a few of these mixes because we had them last week. But we'll try and keep them sort of a bit softer than last week's. And obviously there's a bit more graduation going on because I'm not doing flat washes here. I'm just scribbling paint onto the paper. Caliente grey plus quin coral. It's interesting how much cooler that is than the one with the grey titanium. Caliente grey and Perylene violet, one that I remember enjoying last week. Yeah, look at the moodiness of that. Magic. Caliente grey with grey titanium. So this again is going to be next to its previous mix. So let's just try and shift that a little bit. Yep, good. Caliente grey with some green gold. Really what I need to do is change my water now, but I don't want to. I want to get... trouble is if I leave at this point, I'll just lose track of what I'm doing. Caliente grey with serpentine green. And that's going to be a lovely moody green grey. Nice. Okay, backwards along in this direction. Here's my Perylene. So I should now have mixes of pretty much everything on the board, but I'm just gonna keep going because I want the full range on this piece of paper. I've got some of these mixes in last week's versions. So this is Perylene violet plus Potter's pink. Yeah, see, that's more what I expected. The Potter's pink, really, you need a lot of it to have it hold its own. Perylene violet is really strong colour, so I'm going to use that twice, what I put on there. So this one is going to get some quin coral, like so. That's an amazing flower colour, isn't it? This one is going to get, we don't need to mix it with itself here, we're not doing that, which is why things are ending up next to each other. So that's another 2 mixes next to each other because I'm missing out the self with self, if you see what I mean. Perylene violet plus grey titanium. That needs a little bit more Perylene violet. Having said Perylene violet could hold its own against anything. That's a nice colour. I do love a grey, as you know. Okay, what would also help would be a drier piece of paper towel when I'm drying the brush in between dipping. There we go. Where are we at? Perylene Violet, that's another great chunk of Perylene Violet I've put on the brush there, so let's spread it out between 2 goes. Perylene Violet plus Green Gold. This should be interesting. That should get us something autumnal. Oh, did you see how that came to life as I put it in? That's an astonishing colour. Perylene Violet plus Serpentine Green, which should also be quite interesting. As soon as you start mixing greens and purples, you're in 2 secondary colours. So primary colours, red, yellow, blue in paint, not in screen stuff. It's green, red, blue for visual electronics. Primary colours in paint, yellow, red, blue. You mix yellow and blue, you get green. You mix blue and red, you get purple. So green and purple are 2 of your secondary colours. So the minute you start mixing green and purple, you get into browns and greys. You get into browns. If you mix across, so if I mix primary colour blue with its opposite secondary colour orange, then I'm going to get greys and neutral tones. There are so many great places to go and look at colour theory. But mixing up a storm like this, I think, is one of the best ways. Oh, look, I'm almost out of Quinacridone. Who knew? So, in order to give myself the best shot at having a colour palette here, I'm going to pop a bit more Quinacridone on there. And we might want a bit more Potter's Pink as well, I think. The others, there's plenty of going on in the palette. There we go. A bit more Potter's Pink. I put the lids on nice and tightly, and then mostly what I do with these tubes is they're in a big paper envelope, plastic coated paper envelope, wrapped up and then double layered into a big plastic bag, and I keep them in a dark cupboard. I just want to show you what's happening here. The Perylene Violet and the Quinacridone, just astonishing. And so far that seems to have worked for me. I did have to, opening the grey titanium just now, I did have to bring into practice the French wrench, because if there's paint round the rim when you close it, that is going to make it pretty hard to open again. But the French wrench will do it. So we're now on to Quinacridone at the top here. Woof. As I was saying last week, Quinacridone colours are pretty bold. So this is going to be Quinacridone with Potter's Pink. I had a little moment of, really? So just subtly shifting the tone of that with the Potter's Pink. Slightly less subtly shifting the tone of it, probably, with some Perylene Violet. Nice. And so again, I've got those 2 colours next to each other, but a slightly different mix. Quinacridone plus... Oh, now I am confused. Quinacridone plus... Oh, Caliente Grey. There we go. I got myself back on track. Oh, that's a sort of browny purple. How astonishing. Quinacridone plus my much loved grey titanium. Again, interesting, because grey titanium is quite a... It almost has a granulating effect. It's a very textured paint. I'm not quite sure that it counts as a fully granulating colour. But it does create interesting textures. So Quinacridone and the one that kicked off this whole thing, Quinacridone plus some green gold. Let's see if I can get back to that gold colour there. It's dependent on what exact mix I had of the 2. You can see that's going straight to a sort of burnished orange. Let's see if I add a bit more of the green gold, whether we can go a bit yellower. I mean, it really is a corn colour that I've got there. I think it must have been quite heavily green gold. Let's go again. Another little bit of green gold into the mix. Yeah, that's starting to mix up yellows in the middle. Can you see that? And again, if I mix in the palette as opposed to on the paper, it's partly because the paper is textured and some of that paint has dried into it. Yeah, that's giving me a yellowy colour. And then Quinacridone and Serpentine green. Just pick that up and mix it in. Interesting. Again, I think I want a little bit more Serpentine green just to see what happens to that colour. But there's really interesting colours going on down in this bottom corner. Extraordinary mixes and subtleties. Right, final one, Potter's Pink. Let's see if my brush is remotely clean. To try and get some clean Potter's Pink in the top here. That's not bad for a Potter's Pink. It's a kind of clay pink. I think that's the point of the potters in there. Potter's Pink with some Quinacridone. So again, those two colours mixed are next to each other. That's a lot of Quinacridone in that mix, but let's be fine with that because there's quite a lot of Potter's Pink in the one next to it. Pick up some more Potter's Pink, pop that there. And this one's going to get some Perylene Violet. It's such a beautiful smoky kind of colour. Potter's Pink with some Caliente grey. That's gorgeous. And I'm looking forward to the next one as well. Potter's Pink, which we did have, yes, Potter's Pink and our grey titanium is there. So it should be similar to that, but it won't be the exact same mix. So let's just see what we get this time. But this is going to be beautifully textured with the Potter's Pink, which does granulate, and the titanium grey, which sort of granulates. I'm going to have to look up whether it calls itself a granulating colour or not. Potter's Pink with some green gold, which should be an interesting mix again. The vivid green gold with that Potter's Pink is again doing really interesting things to my brain. Kind of a olive, mustard olive, Potter's Pink and Serpentine green. So what I'm probably going to need to do is to live with and look at this palette for a little while on the paper, and see where it is that I feel like I'm wanting something. My guess is creating paintings or sketches with this. This will do beautifully. You can see it will, for berries and leaves. Even a little shift into some autumnal colours. I am going to want in the long run to be able to add maybe sky colours, but I'll do that separately. So I continue to work with the limited palette and then move on. But I think that's a pretty good first playtime with a palette that, again, for some of you, you'll kind of go, where's Alison gone? But when you're playing with nature, that's when I can live with my reds and my pinks. If I know that I'm aiming for, what might it be, roses or berries, or something like that, I can definitely make my peace with the kind of idea of these colours, which if I'm just doing a piece of crafting, a project, I'm always going to want to work with blues and greys and browns. That's my happy place. Green, of course, sneaks in. But nature does demand that you make your peace with quite a lot of oranges, greens, pinks, purples. I didn't mean to do that. I want some more of the green to just add into this little, sort of becoming almost a bouquet down here. I could do some nice, quite like a bit of darker green. So I'm going to take the Serpentine and mix in a little bit of this Caliente grey. So now we're starting to get, you may remember seeing my previous melamine tray, which has colours just mixed in every direction. Watery ones, strong ones, live ones, and I'm just creating some sort of textured stems in amongst there. It's messy. It's playing. It's not. None of this is. I don't know. Photographic representation. This is a feeling as the paint hits the paper, as the pigments move, as the dance happens, and I'm quite enjoying that almost rosiness of those plant heads. I might want to in the long run add a bit of detailing, but for now a sort of rough rosy sketch. That's kind of doing enough for me. Yeah, there's something about a bit more shaping. I don't know, this is playing now. This is very much a loose kind of game of letting the brush dance, of letting the pigment dance. And that's how I learn. This is how I learn. There's no point trying to know everything before you set out. You have to experiment. You have to play. You have to be bold and deal with things not going your way. And and it's in those moments that you really find out about the things which do give you pleasure. So these berries, I definitely want to put a little white dot of shininess on. I've managed to leave white space on some of those. I will dive in for a close-up of these little things we've been creating with this colour palette, but I think that's worth exploring with. It might have to wait till summer now for me to go exploring, or I might head into some sort of festive berries that I see. Yeah, see, it could be, couldn't it? Holly, berries, green, mistletoe. It's definitely wintry. It has got a wintriness to it, not pure summer. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to dive in for a close-up. I'm going to try to list everything that I've used in today's little playtime, and I hope you've enjoyed that Watercolour Wednesday. Thanks so much for your company, and happy crafting all.